Today I'm going to show you how I created one of the coolest monetization features that I've ever built with a directory in my entire directory career. And what I'm talking about is I created this flow where someone can go and create an account, sign up, and then log in, go ahead and claim a existing listing, which is just a listing in my database, which then goes to an admin dashboard, which is something that only I have access to. I can reject or accept the listing, but once it's accepted, the person who claimed the listing can edit it and upgrade to a featured listing for $29 a month. And what that gets them is the ability to add images to their listing, as well as giving them premium visibility at the very top of my city location pages. But before we actually dive into how I built this, I actually spend the first 5 minutes installing the Supabase MCP server. And this is something that a lot of people have been telling me to do ever since I started my AI coding journey. And it's supposed to make the workflow with Supabase and your databases in general so much smoother. And I figured if we're going to dive into the world of user authentication, giving people the option to sign up and create an account and then access a dashboard where they can upgrade to featured listings, we're going to be dealing with databases quite a bit. So I figured this would be a good move, and that's why I chose to do it alongside this video. Now the good news is that you're going to see a very realistic workflow. You're going to see me prompt, you're going to see me test and debug and work through broken features a lot. And this is a very tightly edited version of what took me like 5 hours in real life. Now the bad news is that this is probably not the best step-by-step tutorial. I mean, you can follow along, but just don't expect to not make mistakes, because this is where a lot of paths diverge. We might be prompting different things. We might be encountering different issues. At the end of the day, I am just building in public. I'm learning very quickly, and I get to a point where I make sure all the features work, but I am not an AI coding expert, so I just wanted to throw that out there. By the way, I won't be going over that Stripe integration that you saw. That alone took me like 3 hours, and this video would be very long if I included it. But if you do want me to show you how I integrated Stripe, then just let me know in the comments below. Now, the last thing I'll say is that if you've been following along in my journey learning AI coding, the last 2 videos, you know that we've kind of talked about the basics. And since then, I did work off camera. So I did deploy a live website directory, which is this one. And it's basically just the same thing that we built, just with improved UI and UX. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this vibe session where we install the Supabase MCP server and create our featured listings feature. So right now I got to a point where I have a live website and I went ahead and deployed it on Vercel. So here is what it looks like, kind of a long pillar page style format. But I've reached a point where I could just leave it like this and just hopefully have it rank, get traffic, build backlinks, grow the website in general. Or I can think ahead and think about the features that I want to use from a monetization standpoint. In essence, I do want to install the Supabase MCP to see the difference, to understand how much better it is to work in Claude Code with the MCP server running. And then lastly, I do want to create user authentication in case people want to register and then log in and then pay for some kind of featured listing. It did kind of give me this plan here, and it basically wants me to start by connecting the Supabase MCP server. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Let's just go ahead and say, let's start with the Supabase MCP server. So here are the first set of instructions that I need to do. And basically I do need to go to Supabase and get an access token and then copy that token. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So here's the dashboard for the scratch indent directory that I created. I'm going to go to the top right corner, go to account preferences, and then I can go to access tokens here and generate a new token. So let's go ahead and try that. Claude MCP server. Now generate the token here. So I'm going to copy this access token and store it in a secure place. So it says here, personal access tokens can be used to control your whole account and use features added in the future. Be careful when sharing them. So that's why I'm blurring this out a little bit. I just don't want to go through the trouble of recreating a token. So now that we have the access token, we can go and update the MCP configuration. And it says I've created a file at .cursor/mcp.json, and I just need to paste my access token in this file. And I was able to find the file just looking on the left-hand side. Here we see scratch indent, and then we see .cursor. So I just click this to show the dropdown, and here's mcp.json. Here's Supabase access token, replace with your personal access token. And I'm just going to replace it right in this area, and that should be done. So the last thing I have to do is just restart Claude Code to load the MCP server. I'm just going to trust the process and hit quit cursor. That's going to cancel it out, and I'll bring it back up, and then we'll type in Claude. So after all that, it does say that it is not yet properly installed and it's not complete yet. So it's recommending that I install the MCP server globally and then create a Claude Code desktop configuration at library application. I'm going to go ahead and see if they can do that for us. So can you do this for me? So it'll help me install the Supabase MCP server correctly. Let me just create a to-do list. Okay, now it says Supabase MCP server installation completed successfully. And what they installed is the MCP Supabase package globally. They set up the Claude desktop config.json. The next steps is replace the placeholder values in this path and add the Supabase project URL and then the Supabase anon key, restart Claude Code. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Apparently we can access the user's Freichu library applications path by pulling up our finder here and then doing Command-Shift-G and then type in the path. So this is going to be users Freichu library application support and then Claude. So it should be right here. We'll press enter and then it wants me to double click the Claude desktop config.json, which is right over here. So now we just have to replace this area with our project URL and our Supabase anon key. For whatever reason, I feel like they changed where the project URL used to be. I used to be able to scroll down here in the project overview tab in Supabase and find my actual project URL, but it's no longer there. However, I can just go over to project settings and here I can see my project ID. And I know that the format for my project URL is just this. It's basically your project id.supabase.co. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and then we'll just replace this part. I don't know why they changed it, but I'll take this, head over to the file here and I'll just paste it right here. Now I just need my Supabase anon key. So I can just go over here, head over to project settings, head over to API keys. And then here we have anon public. So this is the one that I want. I'll go ahead and copy this and then head over right over here and paste that. So that looks good. And at this point, I can restart Claude Desktop to load the new MCP server. So we're just going to go ahead and quit cursor again. I'll pull it up again. Here is my information. For the first prompt, I just said I went ahead and followed your steps to install the Supabase MCP. Can you just make sure that it's installed correctly? So we're just going to go ahead and run a test. So it says all right. It says the Supabase MCP is not installed correctly. To install Supabase, you need to install the Supabase MCP server. Would you like me to run these commands? Yes, please. So it gave me a bunch of commands and I just followed them through. It says the Supabase MCP server is installed and configured, but it's missing the required environment variables. So it's again asking me to provide the access token. So I'm going to go ahead and just provide the Supabase access token that we already created. Now my Supabase MCP is now fully installed and working correctly. All I did for that last step was I just gave my access token to Claude Code and I asked it to add it manually. So I went ahead and did that, and that was the last part that made it work. So hopefully now we can do some pretty cool things. Next, I want to set up my user authentication. And what I'm envisioning is that people have the option to register for an account and then log into their account where they can pay for a featured listing. And this is a listing that will show up on the very top of the location page. And my main offer is I want to give them the option to add images because I think that alone will make the listing stand out a lot. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I just wrote this massive prompt and I basically wanted to air out my thoughts, what I just described. And I mentioned that I want to focus on creating user authentication. I want a sign up and a login button. And I also explained how I want to basically create featured listings, but I don't know if I need to add a claim listing option. I was thinking maybe we can keep it simple and just skip that altogether. So we'll see what Claude Code says here and what the recommended workflow is. So here Claude Code gave me the game plan that it has. It gave me the first option, which I like the most, and it's the recommended option, which is single user type with optional business verification. Users can claim existing listings or create new ones. Featured upgrades available after listing ownership. Super straightforward. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The final recommendation is to start with the claim first approach. This validates your existing data while allowing organic growth through user generated content. Yes, let's proceed with your recommended approach. So it's going to create this Supabase migrations auth schema.sql file. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to create this. And let's see if it's able to basically do that for us. So far, it's been about 3 or 4 minutes and I've just been accepting prompts. I can see that it's creating things that it wasn't able to generate before the MCP was installed. So authentication system complete. and it successfully implemented a complete user authentication system with the following features. So here are the next steps that I need to activate it. I need to run the database migration in your Supabase SQL editor. So let's go ahead and check out the setup.auth.md file, which is right over here at the very bottom of this left side panel. Navigate to the SQL editor, paste the entire SQL script, click run. All right, so this setup.auth.md file basically gives me the step-by-step instructions that I need to follow. Copy the contents of Supabase migrations 001 auth schema.sql. Let's try and find that. All right, so it's right over here under Supabase migrations 001 auth schema.sql, and we're gonna basically copy this and then paste it into our SQL schema. So let's just see if we can handle it all at once. I kind of doubt it, but let's give it a try. We're going to head over to the SQL editor and copy and paste all of this, and we're going to run. All right, so that was super easy. Usually I have to do it one at a time, but I just ran this entire list here, and I believe what that did, if we look at our tables in database now, is it created a lot more tables. Before, we really only had our listings table here, and now we have claim requests, featured payments, profiles, saved stores, and stores. Let's go back to the setup.auth.md file. We went ahead and copied this already and ran it. Now we have to configure Supabase auth. So in the dashboard for Supabase, we can go to authentication settings, enable email authentication, set site to localhost, and add redirects. So let's go ahead and go over to Supabase and let's go over to authentication, and I'm going to sign in /providers. Basically in step 2, Claude wants us to enable email authentication, which it already is right here. So that's already set up here. So I basically just asked the question of, what am I supposed to do next? Should I test the actual workflow and the user authentication in my local development server? So now it says it fixed everything and there's a sign up and login option. If I follow the link here, it just leads to a page that doesn't really load. And so I need to fix this and ask it what is going on. I went ahead and copy and pasted all the SQL you provided. I did try and visit the sign up and login page URLs on my local host, but it's stuck in a perpetual loading state. So now the issue is resolved, and honestly, for the last 15 minutes or so, I've just been accepting commands, and if there is an error where it does say it's resolved, but it's still broken, I basically just say, hey, there's still a problem where I can't access this page, or my local development host is in a perpetual loading state. Please approach this step by step and solve the issue. And finally, it did fix these pages here. So here we can see the actual sign up page that it created. I'm going to go ahead and quickly just fix the font color so we can actually see this. And then we're going to test this out to see if it works. So I went ahead and fixed some of it. We can see it here on our local development server that it did indeed fix that. Here's my login page. And this used to be white font color as well. So now we can finally test this workflow. And I am hoping that when I fill this out, we can go to Supabase and it'll show up in one of the tables in real time. So I'll just do test user1@gmail.com, test user1 for HU. And I'll say I do own a scratch and dent appliance business, and I'll just do phrase business. So we'll sign up here and see what happens. It says check your email. We did send a verification email. Let's just check real quick to see if it showed up in any one of our tables here. And we do have profiles right here, and this looks like the one that we created. So test user 1 for HU, and we have is business verified false, and that's pretty much it. I know it says that we have to check our email, but let's just try to log in anyways using test user 1. So right now it says email not confirmed, so I believe we can actually change that setting by going to Supabase, going to authentication, going to the sign in, and this setting right here where it says confirm email, users will need to confirm their email address before signing in for the first time. We can go ahead and just toggle this off for now because that's what's allowing us to test it really easily while we still build in our local development server. So now that that's off and saved, let's go ahead and try to run that back. So now let's go ahead and sign up again. We're just going to use test user 2 this time at gmail.com. And I will say I own this business, phrase business test 2. So we will go ahead and sign up here. Quick check in Supabase, in the tables area, and I will refresh this. And now this 1 has turned into 2 profiles. And now the business name is showing up. That is a great sign. We'll try logging in using test user 2 at gmail.com. All right. So that worked, and that was definitely worth toggling off. Here is the dashboard that we see when we are logged in, and we can see there are claim requests as well as your stores. Usually when I get this far, none of these actual dashboard features work, so let's just test it out to see if it does. Claim existing store, we'll click on that, and as expected, that does not work. We'll go back and click add a new store, and this does not work either, but at least the general idea is here. So let's go ahead and just make these actual features that work. So I just wrote this prompt here, and I basically asked to focus in on the claim existing store feature. But I also added here that whenever someone requests to claim an actual listing, it should go into an admin login where I can accept or reject the actual claim request. All right, so that was pretty easy and fast. It did create this entire plan here, and I will just be copy and pasting the contents of this new SQL file that I created. It says add is admin column to the profile tables. So this is going to give me an admin profile so I can actually approve and reject different listings that come in. So I'm going to go ahead and try to copy this entire thing over to Supabase. Head over to the SQL editor, remove this, and there is an error here, get diagnostics users equals found. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask it for a way to fix this. All right, so I basically said that I ran into this error right here, and it gave me another file right here, which is called 002 add admin support fixed, because it does have the fixed.sql at the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this whole thing, and we'll try it again. All right, so that returned successfully right here, which is great. And let me just double check the database and the tables. And here we do see a new column, which is admin. So since that ran successfully, all I have to do is update the profiles and just copy and paste this. I can basically run this simple SQL command in Supabase and replace it with your actual email. So I'm going to take this, bring it over here, and I'm just going to change this to frey@shipyourdirectory.com. So syntax error right over here. We're just going to take this error, give it to cursor, say I received this error when copying and pasting the update profiles schema. So I just need to copy and paste this right here, and hopefully it should work. And that worked. Success, no rows returned. So just to recap, what we did in the last 20 minutes or so is we fixed two different features. We fixed the feature where people can claim an existing store when they log in, and then we created an admin profile where if I create an account using frey@shipyourdirectory.com, it should then be an admin, which would be able to accept or reject any kind of requests to claim a listing. So let's just test out the first one first. I'm going to do testuser2@gmail.com, and let's log in and test this out. Let's try claim existing store, and it looks like it's already starting to work more than it did before. Let's just type in Los Angeles, and it says no unclaimed stores found matching Los Angeles, but if I clicked on search, then we do have this option here. Now I'm a little bit confused because I know that if we go over to our directory and we check out the California location page, there are 8 stores. And so it's only choosing one of these. So I kind of just explained the situation in a kind of a jumbled mess, but I did explain that we should be able to see 8 different stores that we can then claim, because that's how many are on the actual location page right here. Instead, we only see one. And what's weird is that this actual location isn't on the Los Angeles location page, despite there being a Los Angeles address. I think it's an example because of the URL, but I just want to make sure that this works properly. All right, so it found a solution. Your claim store search was looking in the stores table, which only had a few sample entries. Oh, your location pages were looking in the listings table, which has all the real business data. These are 2 separate databases that weren't synchronized. So the solution is it created yet another SQL page, which is right over here. We can see it starts with 003, and I just need to bring this over to Supabase, and it should hopefully fix this. And now we have all of the listing data, 10,200 stores in our actual store data. And I think this is what's going to allow us to actually make this feature work. So with that change, I'm going to go ahead and just run another test. I'll just refresh this page, claim existing store. And now let's type in Los Angeles, search. And there's 12 unclaimed stores. Los Angeles, New Hampshire. And then there's all the actual California-based stores. I think that's actually fine in case someone is looking for this particular one. I am going to try typing absolute, to see if Absolute Appliances shows up. So Absolute Appliances did show up here, and now it looks like it's working as needed. So the first thing I actually want to fix is I notice when I type in a city, for example, there's nothing that actually populates. And I think if I were going through this, I would be a little confused and it wouldn't be intuitive enough for me to click on search to find all of these stores. And I want to fix it so that whenever I type in Los Angeles, these automatically show up. So let's try to fix that first. One prompt later, it says it improved the UX by adding automatic search functionality. We're going to refresh this, type in Los Angeles, and there we go. I didn't have to click on search for it to show all of these listings, which is awesome. And now the next thing that I want to fix is when I do claim a store, it shows us this little pop-up here. And I just want to make this really straightforward. I feel like if someone's already going to claim a store, the chances of them just claiming it as not the owner are probably a little bit slim. Now let's focus on the page after I try and claim an existing listing. So I basically specified the fields that I want, which are really simple: business name, job title, full name, email address, phone number. So we're going to go ahead and hopefully replace this and make it way easier. Here we have all of this. So it simplified the claim listing form to make it user-friendly. On the front end of the local development server, it looks great. But for the database, I do want to check, if I refresh this, the actual claim requests. Let's see if this changed. Okay, we have business license, admin notes. So it looks like the actual SQL schema is still the same: business license, additional info. So I do want to basically ask if I need to update any SQL schema. Do I need to update any SQL schema in Supabase after this change? So it does say no SQL schema changes are needed, and it works perfectly because the business license field already exists and the additional field already exists. So let's just go ahead and test this out, and let's go over to this claim listing. We'll head over here, just go over the entire workflow again. Here's Los Angeles, claim Absolute Appliances, and then we will go ahead and just do phrase test, and then we'll just try to submit the claim. Claim request submitted. And now I do want to check to see in my tables, we do have one claim request. So all the additional info here is where all that information is stored. We can see phone, email, job title. So I do want to go ahead and tell Claude Code to separate these into different columns because I think that's going to be a lot easier to manage in the future. I'd like each field to be its own column within its respective table in Supabase. So basically I asked here in this prompt to separate all the information, and that's why I like to double check when I do a test where the data shows up and how it shows up, because I think in the future, if I did want to send a mass email to all of the people who claimed a listing and do an upsell, for example, if I wanted to charge for a featured listing, it'd be really hard to do it with all the information stuck in one column. And that's why I want to make this change. So this is what I need to do. I need to run the migration. I can copy and paste this SQL into Supabase editor. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. This is what I expected to do. Just start copy and pasting this new schema. So that was all successful. Let's go back to the database and the tables. And this time we should see at least some columns for business name, job title, full name, email, and phone number. And they're all null right now because it basically just added the columns. However, if we claim a store again and we just test it again, and then we'll submit the claim, we do now see all of the data show up in its respective columns, which is incredible. That's exactly what we want. And it does say that the status is pending. So now let's go through the motions, log into our actual admin profile and see if we can accept this, and then see if this turns into like approved or something like that, rather than pending status. I'm going to go ahead and sign up using my actual email, and I'll just sign up here. When I go back to login, I'm going to log in here. It looks like there is no way to approve any stores. So let's go ahead and tell that to Claude. So you can see the prompt here if you want to pause it, but basically I'm just telling it that I think I should be an admin if I sign up using this email. It says I need to manually update the profile in Supabase to set is admin to true. And here's the SQL to run it in your Supabase SQL editor. So we can run this SQL, or we can actually just manually turn it into true, but I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this SQL schema. So let's go back to the tables, go to profiles, and this is the one that we want to check. And now it is is true, which is awesome. We still don't see an option where all the pending listings are being pulled in here. Again, going to explain that to Claude. So my next prompt is really just explaining that I do see that I am now an admin, but when I actually go into the dashboard, I should be able to see all these listings that people want to claim and then simply accept or reject them. If I accept them, then the person who wanted to claim that listing in their dashboard, they should see some kind of confirmation that says you have claimed the listing successfully. If not, then of course it should say something like your listing was rejected or something like that. So that's kind of what I tried to explain through Claude Code, and hopefully it works. So now the admin dashboard should be fixed. Let's check it out. So this is the dashboard for my admin profile, and we can see the pending requests are 2, and we do need to fix some of the font color here, but it is showing up. So I went ahead and fixed the UI, and we can see that here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just click approve claim, and I'm not going to add any optional notes, and claim request approve successfully. And we're going to log in using test user 2. And here we do see claim requests have been approved. Congratulations, your claim has been approved. You now own this listing. And then we also have Absolute Appliances that shows up here after it's been approved. And let me just see if I can edit this. So I can't do that. I'll have to fix that feature as well as upgrade to featured. And that is also now working. So now I'm going to go ahead and prompt these 2 buttons to work. And I'm just going to take a little screenshot here and head over to cursor. So I just wrote a pretty big prompt here, and it is pretty feature heavy, but basically I did ask to make these 2 buttons work. The edit button should allow people to basically make changes to their listing, and then the upgrade to featured button should go to a landing page where they can pay $29 a month to basically make this show up on the very top of the city location page. But not only that, I did mention if they do upgrade and pay for a featured listing, then they do have the option to add images in addition to being on the very top of a location page. And I think that's what's going to make it stand out so much more. So we'll see how it handles this pretty large prompt. It looks like in one prompt, it did a lot. Of course, we have to test it. It created a complete featured listing system, and here's what it built. Store edit functionality, upgraded landing page, and then the next step is to update a city page. The final piece is updating the city location pages to show featured listings at the top. Would you like me to implement that now, or would you like to prefer to test the edit and upgrade functionality first? Let's go ahead and test the functionality first. I'll go ahead and refresh this, click on edit, and here we do see that we can edit all of the different options here. I'm going to go ahead and just click off dishwashers and update the store. This is for Absolute Appliances, and then click save. Now I want to check my actual Supabase database tables, go over to the stores, and I'm just going to filter this and look for the name equals Absolute Appliances. So here's the exact listing that we were looking at. It should be under specialties because that's what I see right here. We have refrigerators, washers and dryers, ranges, and ovens. We'll toggle on dishwasher and update the store. Let's now refresh this, go to specialties, and we do see dishwashers was added. We tested the edit button, so I'm going to test the upgrade to featured button. And here's the landing page here, how your featured listing will look. That looks great. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to upgrade this and see what happens. Upload some images. So I'm going to go ahead and test this out by adding an image, and then we'll check to see if this featured post actually shows up on the very top of the Los Angeles page. So I'm going to go ahead and try and test this out by uploading a dummy image that I found online of this refrigerator. It doesn't do a good job previewing it. And now just go to the location page for Los Angeles, and hopefully this featured listing will show up on the very top. So let's go to Los Angeles. And we don't see any featured listing here. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and just prompt until this is fixed. I want to fix a couple things, including making this image look better in the preview. I also need to make sure that it shows up on the actual location page for Los Angeles in this case. So I'm just going to go through those motions and then get back to you when I have this fixed. Okay, so I fixed some UI things. We'll just double check this again. One of them was uploading an image. So let's just go ahead and try this again. And now we do see a preview of the image, which is incredible. Basically right now, it seems to be working, except the core functionality of the featured listing showing up on the very top of the city location page. So right now, this is the one that I technically have upgraded to a featured listing, but it's not any different than the other listings. And to incentivize people to pay for a featured listing, it should look better with images and other ways to kind of make this stand out. All right, so I I went ahead and asked it to fix that functionality, and it took 5 minutes to end up here where it has a lot of these featured store integrations that it implemented. We're going to have to test this out. This is the location page for Los Angeles, and if we look, I can already see it did include this featured store, and it looks pretty good, I will say. It has the featured badge, it has all of our necessary information. The hours need to be fixed, but for the most part, this is definitely a lot nicer than the other ones. So there's a couple things that I do want to test out. I want to make sure if I upload more than one image that it looks good, and then I do want to fix these hours right here. So we'll just add some random screenshots. All right, so now we have 4 images, and I'm going to go ahead and see what that does. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this, and now we can see the images are showing up this way. I do kind of want to make them a square, so let's go ahead and make that change and recommendation. Now I'd like to fix the way images are displayed. I'd like them to show up as a 1:1 aspect ratio or a square. So I just made a massive prompt again right here, and this is it if you want to take a pause. But basically I did ask for an aspect ratio of 1:1, which is a square, because right now it's cutting off a lot of the image. I mainly wanted to fix some UX things as well along with these images, where I recommend that people upload a square image. I also want a save option here because it's not intuitive enough for me to upload images here and for it to just show up right over here. So we can see that it's already making these adjustments, which is great. And yeah, it's going really smoothly so far, I will say. So it should have gone ahead and fixed those layouts here, and it did. The store hours look great now. Let's go ahead and remove featured status. Are you sure you want to remove this status? Let's go ahead and say yes. This should now disappear when we refresh because we removed the featured listing. Awesome. So it not only removed the listing, it added it back right here. And now we can see that it's just a regular listing now. So that is awesome. All right, so that's where we're going to pause for this video. All the features are officially working, and I do go on to spend 3 to 4 hours on the Stripe integration, which was tedious to say the least. But if you do want me to create a video showing you how I did it, I did record it all. I did document the whole thing. I just want to make sure that it's valuable before I put it out. So let me know in the comments if you do want to see that. With that, I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for the support, and hopefully I'll catch you in another video. See ya.